The morning sun cast a pale glow over the cul-de-sac, its golden light bouncing off the neat lawns and uniform mailboxes the homeowners association prided themselves on. From the outside, it looked like any suburban haven. Tidy streets, manicured hedges, and the faint hum of sprinklers whispering across the sidewalks. But behind the pristine surface lay an ugliness that only those who had tasted it could truly understand. My elderly mother, Ellen, was about to learn that the HOA she had trusted for decades was not the guardian of her home, but the vulture circling above it. My mother had lived in her house for over 30 years. It wasn't just wood and brick to her. It was the vessel of her life. The house bore the echoes of late-night laughter, family dinners that lingered until dawn, and the quiet prayers she whispered at her bedside every evening. After my father passed, she stayed, saying the walls held him close. The HOA had never been kind to her, always pestering her about trivial issues, the shade of her shutters, the small vegetable patch in the back, or the fact she had a bird feeder that sometimes scattered seeds on the lawn. Yet she paid her dues, kept her home tidy, and never once fell behind. That morning, I got the call I will never forget. "They're tearing it down," she said, her voice shaking like a leaf in a storm. "What do you mean, tearing it down?" I asked, gripping my phone tighter. "They came with trucks, men with hard hats. They said the house had been condemned by the HOA. They didn't ask, they didn't warn me, they just started tearing into the porch." I felt my heart slam against my chest. I jumped in my car and sped down the freeway, my mind clouded with fury. When I arrived, the sight seared itself into my memory. Her front yard looked like a battlefield. A bulldozer crouched against the porch, splintered wood scattered like bones across the grass. Men in neon vests carried tools, prying, hammering, destroying. And my mother, small, frail, trembling, stood on the sidewalk clutching a box of photo albums they had shoved into her arms, as though her entire life could fit inside cardboard. I stormed forward, shouting, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" A man with a clipboard sneered without lifting his head. "This property has been deemed in violation of HOA code, unsafe structure. We're authorized to proceed." "Authorized by who?" I barked, stepping between him and my mother's porch. "The board. Proper notice was sent," he replied smugly, flipping his papers as though hiding behind them gave him power. I looked at my mother. Tears streaked her cheeks. "I never got a notice," she whispered. The rage that boiled inside me was unlike anything I had felt before. I told him, "You picked the wrong family. You think you can bulldoze an old woman's home and walk away? I'll see you in court." He smirked, clearly used to people crumbling before the iron grip of the HOA. "Good luck with that. The board doesn't lose." But he didn't know who I was. I wasn't just some son with blind anger. I was a lawyer who specialized in property law, and I had spent years dismantling cases just like this. My mother's house was their playground today, but tomorrow their arrogance would become their gallows. That night, I sat by my mother in the small apartment I hurriedly rented for her. She clutched her rosary beads, whispering prayers through broken breaths. I promised her justice. I promised her that every nail, every brick, every memory they shattered would be answered for. The next day, I walked into the courthouse with fire in my veins and a briefcase full of ammunition. The courtroom buzzed with hushed whispers. HOA representatives sat at their polished wooden table, smug as though victory were already theirs. Their president, a rotund man named Gregory Vance, leaned back in his chair with the lazy confidence of someone who believed the law bent to his will. When my mother entered, silence rippled through the room. She walked slowly, leaning on her cane, her face pale but her eyes glimmering with determination. The destruction of her home had not broken her. It had forged her into steel. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, called the room to order.
I stood tall, straightening my papers. Your Honor, I began, we are here today because an elderly woman's home was unlawfully destroyed by a group of people who claim to represent order and community. Instead, they have shown nothing but tyranny, arrogance, and disregard for the law. Gregory's lawyer, a sharp-suited man with too much gel in his hair, smirked. Objection. The HOA followed due process. Proper notices were sent, safety violations recorded. This case is nothing more than emotional theatrics. I turned to the judge. Due process, Your Honor? Then let's look at the facts. I clicked the remote, and images projected onto the screen. Pictures of my mother's well-kept home taken just days before its destruction. No structural issues, no violations that warrant demolition. And yet within 24 hours, bulldozers arrived. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Furthermore, I continued, slamming down a stack of papers, the supposed notice they claimed to have sent was mailed to an address that hasn't belonged to my mother in over 15 years. They knew exactly what they were doing, eliminating her, forcing her out to resell her land for profit. A murmur rose through the courtroom. Gregory's smugness cracked, his face reddening. I leaned forward, voice steady and sharp. This wasn't about safety, it was about greed. They wanted her land, and they thought an old widow wouldn't fight back. But here she is, and so am I. The judge studied the evidence, her lips pressed tight. Then she turned to Gregory. Mr. Vance, did your board authorize this demolition? Yes, he said quickly, beads of sweat gathering on his forehead. Without court approval? Without actual verified inspection reports? He stammered, We acted in the interest of the community. In the interest of your pockets, you mean? I cut in, ignoring his lawyer's protest. The judge slammed her gavel. Enough. This board has clearly acted outside its authority. Effective immediately, I am freezing all HOA activities pending further investigation. The room erupted in gasps. But I wasn't finished. I rose, pointing directly at Gregory. We will pursue full damages, both civil and criminal. Every dollar, every cent, every board member complicit in this crime will pay. My mother's house may be gone, but the weight of the law will rebuild her life and bury those who tried to take it. The judge's gavel struck again. Case adjourned. Gregory's smugness had evaporated. His face drained of color as reality sunk in. They hadn't expected court the very next day. They thought time and intimidation would silence us. Instead, they walked straight into their reckoning. When we stepped outside, my mother clutched my arm. Her voice was soft but steady. Your father would be proud. I looked at her, seeing not just an elderly woman, but a warrior who had endured. And in that moment, I swore that every nail, every plank of her home would rise again, built stronger, brighter, and untouchable. The HOA thought they had destroyed her. Instead, they had destroyed themselves.